All right, here we go. We are all set and we are live. Um, Let me make sure we are good on X and YouTube and elsewhere. Okay, we are good. We're good to go, folks. Let me see here. People are joining by the millions. All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the return of the Real Football Podcast, episode 11. We are joined by football connoisseurs and enthusiasts, Matt Atbury, Abdullah Al Aryan, myself, Bassam Haddad, Khalid Namiz, Arjun Sethi, and Alexander Hayes. We formed the Real Football Group after the 2018 World Cup in Russia to discuss the beautiful. We didn't form it in Russia. The cup was in Russia. To discuss the beautiful game and the often ugly politics behind it. We try to cover all topics, but we fell short recently as a result of wars and Israel's genocide in Gaza. But we're back and we are not apologetic about watching football, even today. So, today we will be discussing World Cup 2026 held in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. In this first 1 week on episode, we will be covering a variety of topics, combining the game itself and some of the logistical and unfortunate social and political issues behind it, including the United States visa and treatment of players and referees all around, for the most part, those from the global south and Iran, solidarity with Palestine and other causes during the World Cup, which we are seeing in an immense fashion. The Iranian team and how it's been treated by the United States and the monarchists, or some of the monarchists, to be fair. And then the hydration breaks fuckery, which is pissing off everyone, not least the players. Some of you have heard what people like
Boo!
Boo is right. People like Van Dyke and others have said officially. The Japanese example, which is
Yeah.
something to sort of go by, and we'll talk about all of that. And then the overbooking of tickets and hotel rooms and general logistical comparisons to the World Cup 22 in Qatar. And we will also be discussing the most and least impressive teams and players during the first week. And we're going through all of this in a rather quick manner because we only have 75 minutes. We'll also talk about the new rules that are speeding up the game and other observations on strategies, lineups, and pace of the game today. Not sure how we will end up covering all of this, but we definitely will try. And this is the first of several podcasts during this World Cup, and the next one will be based not on a critical juncture, but on whether we can get this group together. By the way, the Real Football Podcast or the Real Football Group is a larger group, and some of us rotate and join these podcasts every once in a while. And this is number 11. We will start with a brief set of impressions today by each of us. We are lucky to have everyone here, honestly, including the Sheikh, Matt Atbury, which we call the Sheikh because of his encyclopedic knowledge. And of course, Abdullah Aryan, who has written a book about football, and others who are in and of themselves experts or extreme enthusiasts who are watching everything at the expense of their family and perhaps jobs. I'll start with Abdullah. But before I start, let me just say that I'll do my 2 minute intro in less than a minute. I'm just really interested in looking at how so many of, especially white male journalists in the United States and in Europe, were making snide remarks implicitly, sometimes explicitly, about the World Cup in Qatar 4 years ago for all sorts of reasons. Of course, Qatar has its own share of social and political problems. But now we are seeing that in the United States, the problems and issues that have been raised are shameful, including logistical and political, not just logistical. So I just want to say, yeah, you should have been a bit more conscientious. And looking back, the Qatar World Cup went without a hitch, and maybe Abdullah can tell us about it because he was there. But that's my comment. I'll say a lot more about other things as we speak. We only have a few minutes per topic, and keep in mind that I have a yellow card for those who are going over the limit of speaking. Remember the 8 point or the 8 second rule, that is a new one for throw-ins. And then red if you are speaking for too long. And of course, when you hear this, you probably should wind down. Abdullah, the floor is yours.
Now, is this a messy red card where we won't actually see it? No, okay.
You will
Uh,
you will see it and hear it.
okay. Um, yeah, I mean, thanks first of all, Bassam, really for bringing us all together. It's always a joy to be with all of you and to be able to have these conversations. I mean, I think, in terms of the outset, some initial remarks, I think, is the fact that this World Cup, in certain ways, in certain unfortunate ways, is living up to expectations. I think, there's been concern for several years, particularly with this iteration of the US government, that there would be major obstacles to ensuring a fair competition, and to simply not be able to keep out a lot of the uglier side of politics that we've seen manifesting here for several years. Not the least of which, of course, is immigration policy. And again, I think in many other cases, there's this expectation that you simply suspend all of these things in order to ensure a smooth tournament, right? That you get rid of a lot of the discriminatory and exclusionary practices, and all of a sudden, you're opening the doors, just being on your best behavior. That's really not something that we've seen this time around, and I don't think that's to anyone's surprise. I think, despite all of the conversations we hear often about sports washing, the idea that countries will actually instrumentalize these kinds of mega events as a way to sanitize their image and to improve their reputation, and to, the national branding that we hear so often about. The US is not interested in any of that, right? That if anything, this is more about a way to impose a certain reality, a very exclusionary one. And there's so many stories, I think, that we're all following from the very beginning, in terms of fans, journalists, a referee from Somalia who was excluded, even the mother of the goalkeeper from Cape Verde. Remember, they had such an incredible, brave performance against Spain, the Spanish team that I support. And it was such an incredibly powerful performance. And yet, the first story to come out of that was the fact that his own mother could not be there to support him in person. I think these are all obviously placing a big shame on this tournament, and this sort of goes beyond even the bigger question, which I think we'll get to, as far as the treatment of the Iranian national team in particular. I mean, there's things that are more broader in general, and things that are very specific to what the Iranian national team has had to endure. And the last thing I'll say is just kind of thinking historically. When we go back to as far as the 1966 World Cup, people talk about the disadvantages that other countries had to face in this one sole England victory. One of which, for instance, was the semifinal against Portugal, in which they changed the venue overnight, and the Portuguese team had to travel to Wembley instead of playing it at Liverpool. And to this day, people still raise this as saying this was a huge disadvantage, that gave England an edge to be able to go on and win it. Now imagine, that's 60 years ago, and people are still bringing it up. And now we're talking about an Iranian team that is having to face all kinds of obstacles that no other team is having to endure. So I think there's certainly, a lot of major questions raised, even about the integrity of the competition itself, before we get into the kind of the broader, human issues having to do with the politics of this tournament.
You almost got a yellow card, but
There's no
because you
almost. If it's not a yellow card, it's not a card. Why did you
I
raise
know,
it?
but you know how they reach to their pocket. And also, one more thing. Let me just say that Abdullah, I guess, has been given a little extra time because he's been actually doing these podcasts. He's probably, I'm not sure. You tell me if I'm wrong. He's one of the few people here, if not the only one, who has actually done a podcast last week on the World Cup, and he has written this book, Football in the Middle East: State, Society, and the Beautiful Game, by Abdullah Alian. So if somebody complains why I give you more time, it's not because you're Palestinian, it's because of this. All right.
But
Matt,
Sam, I don't appreciate how you covered up my face to show the book cover.
yeah, I apologize. I had to cover it so I can show, but I will not comment on the background of the people I covered. طيب, Matt, your turn and your floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, one thing I have noticed on a micro level, because Abdullah, you covered a lot of the macro issues, the unfair treatment of teams. By the way, you brought up England. Argentina 78 was worse. In order to get Peru to concede a 6 goal defeat to Argentina, the Argentinian government handed Peru over political prisoners. But on the micro level, the fans who are in those watch parties in those stadiums, they all look like they're having a blast. I realize there's a lot of dark clouds over this tournament, but I think my favorite story so far, and admittedly this is because I am Scottish, my mom's born there, is that the Scottish fans who were watching in Boston drank so much of the beer that the Sam Adams Brewery had to put in an emergency order to refill their tap house. And then, of course, you have, again, on the micro level, the treatment of the Algerian team by the band of the University of Kansas, because they're out of Lawrence, Kansas, and them learning how to play the national anthem in a marching band. And a lot of the feedback I've seen online just from fans who were expecting those hostile macros, which are important, um, on a micro level, they're not seeing that side of it up close and personal. Now, I can't speak to every fan base, and every fan base might not have the same access to talk. But I thought the bigger thing was at least worth mentioning. And the other thing, too, and then I'll wrap up, is that a lot of these teams with the expanded format, you're seeing teams who have never made it before or teams that have suffered from extensive droughts, Scotland included, you know, whether they're winning or losing, you can see the effort etched on their face. And I realize you can only effort so much in a game like football, where ultimately tactics and coaching are the more important variables. But even in defeat, I was so impressed with the Iraqi team and how they, they tried their best to take Norway on. Unfortunately for them, Norway employs a cyborg. His name is Erling Haaland. That's all.
Abdullah, Arjun, over to you.
Great. I think the World Cup really is it brings the world together, and football is the sport of the world. Cape Verde came up earlier. The goalkeeper of Cape Verde now has more followers on Instagram than Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs after one performance. Extraordinary. I would say the thing that has troubled me most, apart from the discrimination against teams and players, are these so-called hydration breaks. Players have come out and said that they very much changed the momentum of games. We've seen hydration breaks in the midst of games where the temperature outside is 60 some odd degrees, it's raining in closed door stadiums. And of course, they're not hydration breaks, they're advertising breaks. The New York Times estimates that the advertising revenue, the rights, are worth something like 1.2 billion, but Fox Sports only paid 450 million because they're making up that delta through these advertisements. A couple of other funny points that come to mind. One, Matt brought up Norway. Norway is a team that's actually traveled to the United States with just a cornucopia of food because they're so worried about eating the processed food in the United States that they're just consuming a lot of their own stuff that they brought with them. Scott McTominay, I think, got so sick that he couldn't train with the team a few times. And then finally, things that's interesting when you think about, there's a lot of enthusiasm about the United States and the American team. 8% of all players who are playing in the World Cup right now were born in France. And so it just goes to show you how some of these European countries are training kids in these academies and ways in which it just prepares them to be world-class players.
Thanks, Arjun. Khalid.
Hey guys, it's you guys are hard acts to follow, but I'll start with this. I'm wearing today. I'm wearing the jersey of Wales, the current title holder of the longest gap between World Cup appearances. I thought that was an interesting point there. A number to note or of note is 168. This is the number of children that were killed by the American strike. The Iranian team walked in wearing pins with the number 168. On a darker note there. Interesting to me that just like you guys mentioned earlier, water breaks, hydration breaks were needed in an AC in an AC cooled stadium. I had an interesting debate with my son Jude about this, and he convinced me there's potentially a couple of positives there, but I'll save it for when we get into the details. And the last number I have is 40. That's the number of Moroccan supporters that were denied visas. They had bought their tickets for thousands of dollars. They had hotel reservations, and they were denied entry at the border, which was devastating. On a lighter note, I was very happy to hear about Scott McTominay earlier. That not doing great because Morocco will be playing Scotland this afternoon. So that's good news. Thank you guys. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Khalid. And Khalid, of course, is from
Watch it.
Marrakesh. From Alex.
Thanks, Bassam. Thanks, everybody. So to pick up sort of where Khalid was last speaking, and also something Matt brought up, um, the governor of Massachusetts, also with Scotland's love affair with Boston, made haggis legal. And I was listening to Charlie Adam on a podcast, and he said that if they can make haggis legal in Massachusetts, then the Scotland team can do anything. But I don't think that includes beating Morocco. Because all of you have already brought up so many of the critical points, I just want to basically add that I feel incredibly American in this tournament. And unfortunately, that includes a lot of shame for all of the off field issues. But I have never seen my national team play a better half of football than we did against Paraguay. And so I'm incredibly optimistic. And that may all change today against Australia, but I just really do hope for the best and want to make the point that this national team does not necessarily represent the Trump administration or the policies that are leading to so many terrible, terrible things that we'll get into over the course of the podcast. I also want to say that I think the most impressive result of the tournament so far is actually the Democratic Republic of Congo getting a point against Portugal. And that leads to my final point, which is to call out the two most cowardly coaches of the tournament, which are Ronald Koeman, who basically guaranteed that the Samurai Blue of Japan would come back and draw, and then Roberto Martinez, who can't drop Ronaldo no matter what he does. Thanks.
Thanks, Alex. We need to move to the specific topics, and feel free to jump in at this point. Just feel free to jump in. You don't need to wait to be called upon. We want to discuss the um, first. I really want to get to the football, but let's very quickly look at how the visa problems that a lot of these players from all over have encountered. People were prevented from coming. An actual referee was actually sent back after from to Somalia after they arrived here. The Iranian team had their own set of treatments, which we will get to next. But anybody wants to comment on the question of visas, and the patting down that teams like Senegal and others were subjected to, as if they are suspected criminals. And this was also based on a lot of witnesses, was not the treatment that European teams
Of
generally
course.
had. So anybody wants to jump in on this?
I think what we saw is basically the application of Trump's expression. You know how a few years in his first term he said shithole countries. So I think the TSA was essentially applying that as policy. They would check the nationality, shithole country, yeah, humiliate them on the runway. Not shithole country, yes, VIP treatment. It's basically the administration doing its thing. I would like to contrast that. So just so this podcast is not 95% doom and gloom, with the treatment that the Algerian team, I think somebody mentioned this earlier, received in the middle of Kansas, out of all places, Lawrence, Kansas, which is an hour and a half away from the nearest Walmart. Like, I'm exaggerating, but that really reflects the, or let's just say, some of the American character, generosity, and openness. So we should keep that in mind and balance. Matt, I think I interrupted you.
Just regarding the Somali referee, I cannot remember the gentleman's name, but basically, what just his name is very common in Somalia, from what I understand. It'd be like if his first name was Matt and I got flagged on a watch list, because Matt's a very common name in English speaking countries. But that story does have a slightly positive resolution. The government of Canada immediately allowed him to come into their country so he can referee there, as he deserved. And the thing that bothers me about that situation, beyond the politics, it's just not fair. I know we all hate referees every now and again, some of us more than others, but the gentleman in question, and again, I'm just, because I can't see his name in text and I'm not going to type on a computer right now, I just want to keep the flow going. Um, he earned that space as a representative of the the CAF as one of their top referees, and to deny him that opportunity is fundamentally just wrong.
I mean, I think what one point that might be worth raising is, where is FIFA in all of this, right? That we know that as an institution, it has intervened in the past, that every time there's a tournament, it actually gives all kinds of conditions, and including relaxing immigration policies in any host country. So why has that not happened in this case? I mean, again, going back 1966, I know I keep referencing this one World Cup. North Korea qualified at a time when England and North Korea did not have relations. And the British government at the time said, it would be better if North Korea would play all of their matches outside of England. And immediately FIFA threatened to pull the tournament, even if it was right before it was going to start. And the English government had to, or the British government had to relent and allow North Korean players to come and compete. We saw just a couple of years ago, Indonesia was stripped of its hosting duties for the Under-20 World Cup, because they would not allow the Israeli team, which had qualified, to come in, and they were observing the kind of the boycott in that instance. And so we know that FIFA as an organization has taken these positions in the past. They have imposed all kinds of conditions on host countries. Qatar, Russia, Brazil, South Africa, all had to bend to the demands of this tournament, of a free, open, accessible tournament. And yet this is the first instance that we've seen in which they simply have not exerted any amount of pressure from anything we've seen. So it's worth at least holding them accountable here as well.
They're too busy handing out participation trophies.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, this is the same FIFA that gave Trump a peace prize, right? This is a FIFA that is doing his bidding, that is allowing the Iranian team to be discriminated against. And we've all seen the empty seats, right? We've all seen the exorbitant prices of tickets. And so I think they're unfortunately a co-opted organization. With respect to the broader treatment in the United States, I think it's fair to kind of draw that contrast. When a lot of teams and players and fans are interacting with the United States government and the United States authorities, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. It's abominable. And it's exactly what they see on the news when they think of US militarism and US foreign policy and even how they treat, right, certain communities in the United States. And at the same time, a lot of players and fans have actually had good experiences with everyday Americans. And so that's a nice thing, right? Whether it's what we've heard about in Kansas and Boston, or even elsewhere.
How about if we move to the specific treatment of Iranian players? First of all, how they are in Mexico and they are not allowed to recover and sleep overnight after the game. Let's go to a. I have a couple of comments here. This is from Thierry Henry. Well, actually, let's go first. Sorry, let's go first to this comment. How this is so long and disrespectful after a 2-2 result with New Zealand. The Iranian soccer team departs Sophie Stadium and must head directly back to Mexico. And this is, of course, was reported on CNN. Iran's coach say his team was ordered to leave the United States hours after its opening match and return to its training base in Mexico. Matt, since you are the historian and encyclopedia of football, has this ever happened? At least in the last 20 or 30 years, because we do know that things were different prior to that. But in the 21st century, has anybody heard of this happening?
So when I hear about teams being retaliated against by their governments, usually it's their own government. As we all know, Saddam Hussein's one of his sons, I want to say it was Urde, was very famous for after Iran crashed out of the World Cup in '86. Some of the players and their families were tortured. In the instance of the 1966 North Korea team, it was suspected, not confirmed to my knowledge, but yeah, these are relatively speaking ancient examples. Um, Certainly not something I've seen. Now, I've seen the one example that's kind of recent ish is I know for a fact that apartheid South Africa was not particularly welcome at these kind of events, nor should they have been. But again, I'm having to pull back 30, 40, 50 years in order to give any sort of even remotely comparable thing. And that's from an internal, the Iraqi FA or the North Korean FA or the then Zaire and now Democratic Republic of Congo FA against their own players. I've never heard of an external government doing this.
Anyone else?
It's a disgrace. It's an
Sorry?
absolute disgrace.
Absolutely.
It's just a disgrace. It's so shameful. That Iranian team is playing so hard. Anyone who saw that 2-2 draw, it was just an amazing game. That second goal is imprinted in my mind. And for them to be forced to leave immediately, and to set up camp in Mexico, it's just an absolute disgrace.
What bothers me about that is why hasn't the Iranian FA straight up told FIFA, look, either let us play all of our games in Canada and Mexico, or, you know, we're going to threaten legal action or something? Because, and they're not the only team I feel that way about. I admittedly have had very strong reservations about the treatment of, say, the Haitian team because, and I hate the fact that shithole country is now a part of the political lexicon, but they have been singled out in that regard before. But just why haven't these countries just simply asked, hey, look, for our the health and safety of our players, we cannot play there.
Well,
With that said, the first country to deny a work visa to a player was not the United States, it was Canada. They denied Thomas Partey a work visa because he is on trial for 7 counts of rape, which, you know, that once once I once I heard the denial, I'm like, oh Lord, what is this? And then I read the story. It's like, okay, yeah, that tracks. Good for you, Canada.
yeah, I mean, if you've seen pictures of Infantino on Trump's lap, this becomes clear why FIFA hasn't actually stood up to any of this. It's two things. It's the shameful decisions by the United States politically, which is actually not something new in the realm of politics and the United States. But number two, it's also the corruption within FIFA. It seemed. Remember, what's his last name? Seth Flatner, or what was the?
Bladder.
The bladder.
So this guy, we thought that it couldn't get worse, and then Infantino comes in. So unfortunately, this is very much par for the course. So
Hey,
what
hey,
about?
quick, since you mentioned Infantino, did you guys notice how the producers, maybe they have an edict from Infantino himself? They have to show like 45 seconds of every game of his beautiful face, like while the game is going on. It's pretty insane that every game they have a like multi-second shot of Infantino looking bored at different games. I thought that's like a third world, a shithole country dictator.
Another thing
It
that we
reminds me of
also
what Trump would do, right? That's
Exactly.
like the
It's
behavior you would
exactly what
expect from
Trump would
Donald
do.
Trump, right?
Yep, 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 yep.
It's the
another
same
thing,
way.
unfortunately, is some of the folks that were receiving the Iranian team here and there or outside certain spaces, presumably folks that are anti-Iranian regime and pro monarchy, are on videotape and dozens of video calling the team shameful and terrorists and so on, which actually doesn't help the team actually go on and do what it needs to do. And also, to be fair, there's a conversation back and forth. Not all people who support the monarchy or are critical of the regime are saying that, but it is also shameful to do this at a time when few years back those same people were egging on or supporting the team. So this is another piece of news I wanted to bring up. All right. Um, just for the sake of time, let's move to the hydration breaks fuckery. I know that a lot of people are saying there is some sort of a justification, and I just read that Champions League is actually outlining a plan for hydration breaks. What the hell is this? Is this bothering anybody else's
Ooh.
message? Is bothering me? We're sitting there watching, and all of a sudden, for instance, in the case of Brazil and Morocco, Morocco was really getting, you know,
Absolutely.
they were moving at an
Dominating.
incredible pace.
Bassam, the word is dominating.
They were moving, yeah, they were moving at an incredible pace at a particular point after Vinicius scored. And then there is a hydration break. It killed the momentum. This is not about, I mean, sure, you want to have a hydration break, but it's really changing the structure of the game. People, I understand that that global warming is taking place, but there is something else, and we're not talking about the other thing, and that is it's also about advertising. And I think the Champions League is thinking about this not out of concern for the health of the players, but because it is a revenue making decision, especially when in Dallas, where you have an air conditioned field. Why would you need hydration breaks in times when the temperature is hovering between 68 and 72 Fahrenheit? Why would you need hydration breaks? So if anyone else wants to say something, especially if it's negative, please speak up.
Have
I
you
mean, it's
ever
clear.
been to the
Go ahead, Matt.
Northeast? Have you ever been to the Northeast this time of year? It feels like a warm, wet blanket. So even though the temperature is only 70 some odd degrees, that will absolutely dehydrate you in a hurry. I say this as somebody who myself is prone to dehydration. Is FIFA just using this as a money grub thing? Yes. However, I've lived in the middle Atlantic, northern eastern region of this country most of my life. I hate the summertime. and I walk to work, walking a mile in that, and these guys are running miles, plural. Yeah, it's not unreasonable that they need a drink of extra water, just from a logistical
Uh,
standpoint.
Matt, as a counterpoint, they could always drink water. Like the bottles are right there. They can just stop by the coaching area and pick up a bottle, or by the one of the goals. That is not this. These are commercial interests changing the nature of what football is, and we have to uh, decide whether we can separate the love of the game from these corporate interests that are starting to control the most important football events in the world. And that's the reality of it. I think it's one of those things where in Arabic we say "sharrun la budda minh," which is a necessary evil, where there is FIFA provides this structure. It's now so entrenched into the whole world that you cannot organize a separate World Cup, the People's World Cup or something like that. It's maybe there's some lobbying that can be done against changes that we think are detrimental to the game. But it's definitely for commercial reasons. I don't think it's for the well-being and welfare of the players.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Americanization of a global game, right? I mean, it's about trying to divide it into four quarters, having all
Yeah.
of these breaks. You think about the biggest events in American sports. I mean, for the Super Bowl, advertisements are part of the experience. It's part of the spectacle. People talk as much about the advertising as they do about the game itself. You think about watching the NBA Finals. I think you see more ads there than actual action on the court. This is something that football has always been immune to, in part because of the structure of the game, and in part because it has never been this commodified in its history as a way of just squeezing every last bit. You look at the latest FIFA strategic plan that came out, I think 2 years ago, and it says very explicitly that their number one goal is to get $11 billion in revenue over the course of the next 4 years. Where is that going to come from? They have one major signature event, and that's the World Cup. And as we heard, about 10% of that revenue is coming straight from advertising during these particular breaks. So it's a massive boon in revenue. I think for us also, what's lost is not just what's happening on the field in terms of the momentum of the game, but even the experience of watching. I mean, for us, those are really critical moments when, you would just have an unfiltered feed watching the coaches motivate their players, watching them talk tactically and kind of prepare for the next stage of the game. So even, having that break doesn't justify cutting to a commercial. And if you've noticed, they've been cutting to commercials throughout all sorts of other awkward moments when you're seeing the teams lining up. They're trying to squeeze in that last 30-second ad instead of watching the teams kind of in that sense of anticipation right before the game is about to kick off. We've lost a lot of those moments that I think used to be quite valuable and in some ways really distinguish football from all of the other sports in which, advertising takes over.
A quick plug, you can watch on Telemundo. They don't actually cut to the advertisements. They will show the players gathering.
Mhm.
I will say that in a sport like basketball, for example, timeouts are intentionally used to break momentum. We've seen that here. And then on this point about big money, a lot of people don't know this. Even on the US side, the majority of Pochettino's salary is paid for by Ken Griffin from Citadel, right? Like a hedge fund manager. And so you're just seeing this corporatization absolutely take over the game. And now that the World Cup has given license to this quarterly structure, I'm not surprised the Champions League is going to follow suit, right? Because they've created that precedent.
You
Yeah,
should watch
I think they're
Telemundo
doing it.
anyways.
Let me just quickly bring that in. I think they're doing it just like they thought about the Super Cup. I think this is motivated by profit. I mean, all of a sudden, Europeans are like, "Oh my God, people get dehydrated." Anyway, go ahead.
You should watch Telemundo anyways, so you don't have to hear Lexi Lawless's stupid voice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other
We were not
takes?
gonna we were not gonna make it an entire episode without me taking a pot shot at Lexi Lawless.
All right. Well, let's move quickly now. We have to move very quickly to a couple of things. First of all, the Japanese example of cleaning up. I don't think we need to say a lot about this, but the way on in this World Cup and in previous events, the fans, the Japanese fans, actually go around the seats and the stadium where they're at, and they clean up as much as possible before they leave. I mean, what is this? This is amazing. Is this something that Matt, from your memory and what have you, isn't this unique? And everyone else, of course.
Yes and no. So Japan has qualified for every World Cup since 1998, and since then it's been on a global stage that they clean up after themselves. I don't think it's entirely unique to them, but I do think that they encourage other team fan bases psychologically to join in. I remember in 2018 they had a 2-2 draw with Senegal, and once they started cleaning up the stadiums, the Senegalese fans joined in, and they all, after a thrilling 2-2 draw, helped make that arena as clean as they could. I could not find why they did do it. I did about a half hour research on this morning, and the conclusion I've arrived at is it's just a Japanese thing, and good for them for being courteous.
They have a thing about cleanliness, and if
Yeah.
you walk the streets of Tokyo or Osaka or Kyoto, no trash cans. You have to basically hold on to your trash and dispose of it. The streets are clean. Um, and over the last 2 or 3 years after COVID, there was an influx of tourism into Japan, Tokyo. So tourists started, unfortunately, littering. So Tokyo is going to be one of these countries that fines, like these extreme fines, like what is it, Singapore, for littering. So I think it's just part of the Japanese thing to be clean and to help spread that message and behavior, and I applaud them for it. It's beautiful. I don't know if they know that
One of
there are workers actually taking jobs from people by doing that, but that's a separate.
No,
one
this
of
is
the one of the best bets I think you can make in the tournament is the Fair Play Award, and to bet on Japan. It pays 30 cents. So if you bet like a buck, you make like a buck 25 or a buck 50 in profit. Japan's going to win the award. Japan's going to win the award. You can still make it on Robinhood. Now it's gone up to about 45 cents.
No, this is. I mean, in the end, it's just an amazing example. I mean, whatever its history and whenever it started, it just raises consciousness. And I know this is like a side thing, and it's just that something about it is just very refreshing. So let's move, before we talk about football, very quickly to the question of logistics and tickets, overbooking hotels, and then going back and trying to struggle actually to keep up. And I haven't actually, right now, in the past few days, I haven't caught up to how things have transpired after that first period. But I do see all sorts of titles and headlines like this one. World Cup fans fume as costly tickets bought through resale sites fall through, like with StubHub, where you go and get your tickets there, and then when you go to the stadium, you find out that these third parties have not coordinated properly with FIFA, and you cannot get into the game, and that has crushed the dreams of so many people that went to these things. Any word on these issues?
Don't use Ticketmaster.
Yeah, those guys are an abomination. Not just for football, for all kinds. And there's a couple of class action lawsuits against them, by the way. But do we have any official numbers on the how full the stadiums have been? I think they've been pretty full, which surprised me. I think it's in the high 90s every time. So I think further research is warranted here. Yes, the tickets are expensive. People are getting hosed, but for some reason, I don't know if it's the social media effects where we're hearing about only the negative side of things, but looking at the coverage, stadiums are pretty much, even actually pictures from social media, they do show that these stadiums are pretty much full. What do you guys think?
I've definitely seen games with large numbers of empty seats. Games that again, I'd have to think back on the particular games, And in fact, actually, FIFA put out a couple statements saying if you're seeing empty seats, it's because people decided to affirmatively stand, which I don't buy, right? So they were actually pretty defensive after the first couple days. And in the same way they're zooming in on Infantino, I could also imagine them saying, hey, focus here, focus there. But it is worthy of additional research. Also, we didn't see these issues in Qatar. I don't recall seeing anybody thinking they had tickets and then being stuck outside a stadium.
No, we didn't see this in Qatar, but we saw quite a bit of empty seats in Qatar. And the research so far, based on things that have come out in the past couple of days, is that this is one of the most attended World Cups. Um, it's actually so far, as far as the articles I've seen, it's very well attended, and whatever empty seats there is, it's just a natural, occurrence, but it's not a phenomenon. In fact, the record is that, or the fact is that this World Cup might break attendance records. Okay, if no one has anything else to say, because this podcast has been so fucking boring so far, because we're talking about all this stuff which we all love and sorry, we all live for, in terms of all these political and social issues. But let's get to the fucking football, for the love of whatever you're into. Um, we are going to start with. Is that okay? Any objections? All right.
No,
So
let's just keep talking about logistics and the price of hot dogs or something.
so here's the results so far with the first 21 matches, with a lot of 1-1s and 0-0s and so on. Before we do that, as we are planning to talk about the surprises, upsets, and what have you, I would like to out all of our guests here by sharing their predictions. This Real Football group that produces this. Wait a minute. Thanks, Khalid, for alerting me. Um, the people here are trying. The people here with us, in addition to the football group members, have put together, since 2018. We've put together a list, like brackets and all sorts of sheets where we predict scores and so on. And the winner usually gets, like a jersey or something like that. So I would like to share with you the top four by everyone, just so that you have a background. And that's before the World Cup. That's about at least a few days before the World Cup. So Alex, Spain, France, England, Portugal. So these are Alex's picks, and everybody got upset when I said I'm going to do this live. Arjun, Brazil. No wonder Arjun said no, don't do that. Brazil. Well, you never know. You never know. Endrick
You
hasn't
never
really
know.
played much yet. Brazil, Spain, France, Argentina. We're also hegemonized by these top teams. Myself, France, Spain, Argentina, Brazil. Abdullah, who is the most, scholarly about this, Spain, France. So basically, you flipped me. Spain, France, Brazil, Portugal. Khalid, Spain, France, Argentina, Morocco. And Matt, our Sheikh, Spain, France, Holland, yes, because Cruyff, Argentina. So let's open it up and start by talking about, let's seriously start by talking about what has impressed you and what seemed to be like a downer based on your expectations. So let's start with Abdullah.
Well, first let's remember in 2010 Spain lost their first match, okay, and then they ended up winning all of it. So who knows? You can't really say much about the first game. I will say that overall, what I've been impressed by is the parity, meaning that teams that have gone down have been able to come back, whereas in the past it feels like you go down a goal, then you give up two more, and that's the end of the game, and it ends up being very little drama. And so I do think we are seeing, notwithstanding a couple of incredibly lopsided results. We won't talk about Canada, Qatar yesterday in particular, but let's say that otherwise there have been some really impressive demonstrations of resilience. There is a kind of closing of the gap, so to speak, in terms of quality, across the breadth of this tournament. I mean, again, when this was expanded to 48 teams, we saw a lot of groaning, particularly from fans of European teams and South American teams, to say this is diluting the talent and, it's making the group stages irrelevant. And, there was a lot of complaining that I think has not been borne out by the fact that we've seen some really quality football from a lot of teams that came in with incredibly low expectations. So on the whole, I would say that's been a lot of fun to see. I would like to see a better Brazilian team because I always say that football overall is better when Brazil is playing well. So that's been a little disappointing. Spain is Spain. I think they play the same no matter who they're playing against. So they're not a team that plays to the level of their opposition. So I wasn't as concerned with their first performance that I think other people have been. And we'll see. I mean, I think, the Golden Boot race is also heating up. It's kind of interesting. We've had a couple of hat tricks, a couple of doubles from different players, so it'll be interesting. And it's all the usual suspects, right? With Messi, Mbappe, Kane, all really stepping up, and Haaland, of course. So you have four, and then plus this Jonathan David from Canada had a hat trick. So I think that's going to also be interesting to see how that progresses. It may literally just depend on how far, which team makes it the furthest might actually decide that.
Arjun?
I mean, the parity for sure. The number of teams that have come back to draw, the late goals, people to watch. It's always amazing to see, just these young stars. This kid Diamande, 3 years ago, he was playing at a high school team in Florida. And I guess this past season, he was rookie of the year in the Bundesliga. Liverpool offered 100 million for him. They want 125 million for him. I think he plays for Leipzig. But what a story. And I guess the other point I would say is that I think the teams that are attacking are the ones that I think are the most dangerous. And so I know we're going to give revised picks. I'll revise my pick as well. But I have this desire for France to go down in an elimination game. And so we can see all of those players that we all know on the field at the same time. And Didier Deschamps saying attack, right? Just imagine, right? Like Mbappe, Elise, Dembele, Cherki, Doué, Barcola, all on the field because they're down a goal and it's the 87th minute. And so I hope we get to see that because it'll be very special if we do.
Can I say something? Because I'm not gonna do myself as part of the interjections that are longer. I just want to say that the 48 team thing is a plus and a minus. It's a minus today because of the things that have been said that Abdullah outlined. But it is a plus because it is creating the kind of inspiration that down the line will change the whole game and the whole tournament. So, yes, if you're looking at things in a narrow manner, you might be able to say this. And we have been seeing it actually, and the question of relevancy is not uncompelling. But with time, I think this. Have you seen? I actually have these channels in one of the things that are very legal that I have. I have these channels from like all over, from all these countries, and people are just going crazy about their teams being in the World Cup and how many young boys and girls this is inspiring. And of course, we haven't talked about the question of sexism in football and women's World Cup and so on. Most men watching football don't even know when the women's World Cup is, and there we are here like with 6 men. So it's embarrassing. However, the idea is this is good for the future of football. So I'll just stop here.
So the Women's World Cup, as I'm sure all of us know, is in Brazil next year. We'll start there. But I was one of the people complaining, Abdullah, when they expanded the tournament. And people that I listened to were saying, oh, why not go to 64? Because I think that literally is the long-term plan. But I think on the evidence of one game, there are basically 47 of these teams that deserve to be at the tournament. And I don't know, under what other circumstances would Fabio Cannavaro be coaching Uzbekistan, right? You have these amazing stories where teams were so close to qualifying too. So I'm really happy about it. I don't think we'll get really, really serious until we get to the round of 32. And I don't know how I feel about the best eight best third place teams qualifying because there's very little jeopardy I think for some teams. I'm not worried about Spain either. I don't know whether I'll be revising my picks or not, but yeah, I think it's fine at 48, and we'll see where it goes.
Khalid, and then Matt.
I lost the thread a little bit. Are we on the 48? The count at
We're
this
talking
point?
about the teams that have impressed you or that have been some sort of a disappointment in the context of the increase to
Sure.
48.
Yeah. I'm very happy for countries like Cabo Verde, who a large swath of people have never heard of. Who I actually helped two people locate Cabo Verde on the map. Uh, I'm very happy for them to get exposure. I think it's good for the game on the aggregate. It is. I think the total number of games in this World Cup is 108 games, so it is a lot. Over 6+ weeks, but I'm not complaining. It's once every 4 years. I think it's one of the few things left that brings the world together in a very splintered world. So I think on the aggregate it's positive. Um, the teams, again, most of the way it works in the past, generally speaking, is that most teams grow into the tournament, and so like Abdullah said earlier, the first game does not tell you much. So, I mean, some teams start with a bang, some with a whimper, and that's talk to me after the second or third game. That's why I'm very excited about today's game for the U.S. against Australia, but most importantly, if I'm honest, for Morocco against Scotland. I just got a text that Robertson and McGinn ate from the same buffet as McTominay, so the news keep getting better. Out of possession versus in possession tactics, Matt. It seems that many, maybe not all 48, but many teams revert back to 4-4-2 out of possession as like a default position, and then they switch to a more dynamic, 3-5 with the wingers going up and down. But it seems that 4-4-2, as much as it's like parking the bus kind of. It's a good defending strategy. I would love to hear what Matt, our Encyclopedia Futbolista, think of this.
Yeah, we will actually discuss like
Okay.
tactics right after talking about teams, specifically teams, but also players if you like. But before we go to Matt, I would like to show something that is a positive development, which is actually pretty cool. Speaking of Cape Verde, this is a decision that was just made recently after the first game. Mom of the goalkeeper who
But Sam,
couldn't
is
attend.
FIFA? Are you getting money from FIFA to show us this ad? Are we getting any
Yeah, yeah.
royalties?
Yeah, I
What is
mean,
the ad anyway? What is
I
it
mean, what can I
advertising?
do? What can I do? I had it set up and then it went to the ad. شو بعمل?
Oh, it's
We
for
live we
Virginia
live
DMV. It's not
we,
too bad.
we live in America. شو بدي أعمل? طيب, okay. I mean, this is the whole world, not just America. It's also in Beirut.
Yeah.
All right. So this is good news. I just wanted to say that. Matt, please go ahead.
So Vozinha of Cape Verde, easily the most impressive player of the tournament. Some of my American friends who watch this sport every 4 years have been following along. They too, without my intervention, have been watching on Telemundo because Lexi Lawless and Taylor Twellman both sound like they're preparing for colonoscopies instead of the greatest sport in the world. But one team I want to highlight who really disappointed me. Granted, okay, it's a lie. They didn't disappoint me because I was rooting for their opponent, but I was so thrilled for the Democratic Republic of Congo to draw with Portugal because Roberto Martinez is, I know Jose Mourinho said this about Arsene Wenger. The real specialist in failure is Roberto Martinez. He wasted Belgium's golden generation and he's going to waste this Portugal team. And Cristiano Ronaldo, I know he's a billionaire. I know he's won everything there is to win except for this tournament. He needs to get 3 new sponsors right away: Dove, Dawn, and Tide, because that man is washed. Much to my enjoyment.
Nice, nice.
But teams, we've all talked about how France took care of business. I I am not worried about Spain, purely because watching that game, you got the feel we are watching a once in a generation performance from Cape Verde, and none of those 11 guys, even if they get swept for the rest of the group stage, will ever have to buy a beer or coffee or whatever drink they want on that country again. They that 11 for that goal stand against Spain, and Khaled, you brought up the 4-4-2. That is the perfect formation for setting a low block. Because let's face it, Cape Verde is not going to beat Spain on talent and playing open. They needed to be compact, they needed to be disciplined, they needed their keeper to turn into a combination of Gianluigi Buffon and Lev Yashin for 90 minutes, and that's exactly what they got. And my hat's off to them. The other team I really want to highlight really quickly for just the guts that they showed in adverse circumstances is Iraq. I know I highlighted them earlier in the show already. You never got the sense that even after that cyborg, known as Erling Haaland, scored those 2 goals, that they had given up. Also, that last goal, no disrespect to Norway, because they also hadn't made a tournament in almost 30 years. That last goal caught a lot of arm. It should have ended 3-1. But that's all.
I just wanted to highlight the Iraq goal, which was one of the most emphatic headers I have seen, not just in this tournament. And this is an occasion for me to do something that I haven't been able to do in the past 3 years of broadcasting all sorts of panels and teach-ins on the genocide in Gaza and on the war in Iran and everything else that's been horrible that's happening, and that is use a sound effect for Iraq. Yeah, and then of course they ended up like
Is,
not winning.
is that Naya and
Unfortunately,
her friends in the back?
لا, this is actually part of the software. Khalid, shukran. All right, so let's quickly move to a couple of quick things, and then we all are done. We have 10 more minutes. We can expand it to 15, and that is number one, the question of the new rules and how they are speeding up the game, particularly the throw-ins and basically the goalkeepers' time limits for holding the ball. I'm not sure if there's a third thing, but feel free to bring it in. And then in that breath, we're going to talk about strategies and something that we already mentioned. Khalid mentioned it and Matt did. Basically, what are we witnessing? Those of us who have been watching for a long time, and I know that within this group, Jesus Christ, you're all young. I hate you. The first World Cup I watched. Can I say this online? Maybe I shouldn't. It was 2014. No, it was 1974. I have some memories of that, faint memories, and things are changing. The game is changing in terms of a number of indices. So, can you just share with us how you see the game changing? We already talked a little bit about this, but it'd be great to talk about this further because this is something that is very interesting, which is, in my view, also making the game more competitive for what can be called B or C teams. So let's change it up right now. Let's start with Arjun to talk about the new rules and just how you are viewing the game and the strategies and the tactics that are being employed.
I think speeding up the game is good, right? Throw-ins, punts. I think it does create more parity, right? When some of the bigger teams from that we all know, the Spain, the Frances, Englands of the world, get a lead, it's easy, or even just against their counterparts, right? It's easy for them to waste time. And so I like speeding up the game. I think it's also helped in other sports, baseball too. I know that's fundamentally American sport. So I don't perceive it as Americanization. I perceive it as just kind of moving it forward. And time wasting can be very annoying as a fan, right? I've been there and I've watched games and I've seen teams try to kind of muck it up. And so I'm generally for it.
One thing to
Okay.
note about the goalkeeper rule is that has been in place since at least the 80s, but it is so seldom enforced because you're not allowed to hold the ball for more than 6 seconds. And everyone on this panel has watched a goalkeeper hold the ball for 20 at least. So that's not a new rule so much as a point of emphasis and enforcement, which doesn't bother me.
One thing actually about these new rules is that you can take away a corner, but you cannot award it. Do you guys know why? Can you guys hear me?
You meaning through VAR? Through VAR?
Yeah, I think it's a quick
Khalid
review.
Khalid
They don't
couldn't
actually start.
fathom Khalid couldn't fathom that he was ignored for a second and a half.
I feel like I've seen them reward a corner. No.
It's you can do it one way but not the other, and I could not find an explanation why.
Oh.
But overall, since I took the mic, overall, I think these are positive developments. You can see time and time again in many, many games where the player would start flailing while falling midair like a fish, and they would look up at the ref. Ref ignores them, and then they get up like nothing happens. It's the funny. So I am happy to see the beginning of the end, or the diminishing of those antics, having used them myself in the past.
Anyone else on either this or the tactics before we? I mean, there. I, I mean, okay. I'll say something that might create a discussion. What we see B teams, and I know this is problematic, right? Some people might say, "Why are you saying B teams?" Well, I'm looking at the record, whether the record has been set up based on structural disparities. I'm looking at the record. B teams or C teams. I don't know what the difference between B and C. I just came up with this right now with the C teams. I usually say B teams, but now we are seeing that there are some C teams because you know a B team is pretty powerful, pretty decent, and we can see with time. We will see with time what a C team is. It's ones that cannot even get cannot equalize with another team, whether it's a B or an A team. The point is, what do you do when a team parks the bus, and what is it? What does it take to actually go through? I personally see two examples. I see Spain as we saw it without Williams and Lamine Yamal. Which somebody made fun of me that I'm wearing like a club jersey because some people do religion, I do Lamine Yamal. So, and that's the one I have. So there's that. So how do you do it? So there are two examples. There's France and there's Spain. The way Spain did it, they couldn't break through Cape Verde. Like they simply couldn't do it. But because of the dynamics of how France naturally plays, or PSG, I mean, maybe there's a connection. They are able to break that because of the fact that they don't just come up and then try to sort of pass the ball around until they find an end. They basically interchange and go back and forth in terms of positions and locations and so on. Any comment on that? Because that's going to happen in the next two games for especially vis-a-vis teams that are happy with a draw.
So
I
my
would say
dad
you go.
uses
Good.
this.
Go ahead.
So my
Do
dad,
we have an
instead of
example?
yes, so the reason that Spain struggles against a low block, particularly when a goalkeeper is standing on their head, is all Spanish strikers seem to suffer from what I refer to as Alvaro Morata disease. They cannot finish, whereas France has incisive finishers. Spain, not so much. The last decent Spanish strikers I can remember are Raul and David Villa, and they've been retired for a while. The key to a good low block is communication and discipline on the low block's end, which involves making the space smaller. I realize I sound like Pep. Whereas Spain's goal is always trying to make the space bigger, which is fine and dandy, but you still at the end of the day need to be able to shoot the damn ball. And that has been Spain's weakness for the last 16 years. And instead of B and C teams, my dad uses the term mid major, which is adopted from American college sports, but it encapsulates the same phenomenon that you were referring to, Bassam. and Arjun, I'm sorry.
Oh, Alex, you want to jump
Anyone
in?
else?
Yeah, do we have an example of a game where one team has been dominant throughout and then got the breakthrough that they deserve? I don't really feel like we've seen that in this tournament. And, you know, for me, you're talking about Spain's failures, Matt. They've passed the ball 2,500 times between their last, you know, or since their last World Cup goal. I don't really have a problem. I think that they'll get their awards eventually, and as long as you play the game the right way. And this leads me back to what Bassam was saying. That 1974 Dutch team was playing the closest thing to modern football that we've had. So I think you play the game the right way, you get results. And
Arjun?
I'm right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's important not to over extrapolate from the first game. I think Pedri, the data analytics show that Pedri generated more expected goals than any other player, 1.25 goals. They were obviously missing Nico Williams. They were missing Lamine Yamal. Those two come in. They're attacking players. I think the whole composition of Spain changes. At the same time, I think this is right. Spain has not
And
defeated
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I feel so strongly about this. I'm going to interject. And Rodri was high.
Yeah, I know you said that. I know you said that. Yeah. But I don't think Spain has actually beaten a ranked team at the World Cup since 2010 or something, because they keep getting draws and advancing on shootouts. So someone can double check that. But they actually now have a record of, I think, the three games with the most completed passes is Spain. But you got to score. And so I do think things will potentially shift when those two are in. But also shout out to the folks who are calling out Roberto Martinez and calling out the Dutch coach. I thought the Netherlands looked amazing. I think they're a very dangerous team. I would pick them to go much further if they had a different manager.
Ronald Koeman's a dinosaur.
Absolutely.
So one final point from me. I had the opportunity to see the U.S. Netherlands game live in Doha, and it was amazing to me how optimistic the American fans were. And I knew we were going to get destroyed. We did get destroyed. But this time around, the Dutch fans are really, really down on their team. I think perhaps rightfully so. But yeah, maybe the solution is replacing the coach and not taking off your most dangerous players.
All right. Last segment, divided into two things. First, the United States. I guess most of us live here. Most of us live here. Absolutely. 1, 2, 3, 4. Abdullah's visiting and Alex left. So basically, one of the things I'm really happy for is how the US is doing in its football team. And I know this is not a popular view within progressive circles, but this is actually good for football because I cannot bear having football behind, like so far behind the other game that, the handball game, that American handball, but they call it American football for some reason because you play it with your hands. Um, and then basketball, fine, and baseball. It's so far behind, and something needs to happen for it to go forward. I mean, even on ESPN or what have you, like because football called soccer, the fuck is that?
Sam,
Here,
I have a solution for you. I have the answer. We need more hydration breaks.
I mean, that's one thing. The other so essentially, it's a good thing. It's a good thing because it will actually move things. And there are already all sorts of reports, like serious reports, as an evidence based, showing an excitement that has never existed. Certainly not in 1994. Those of you who are here in 1994, watching and following, for instance, I was. Yeah, it was wonderful, but nowhere near what's happening right now. And the discrepancy between what the United States did to hype up this World Cup at the ground level on the street, which is actually a very poor job, and what the actual response of fans are in reality once the game started, that there's a huge discrepancy, which actually is very encouraging. So that's great. That's wonderful. And in a couple of hours, the US is playing And that's all good, and please feel free to comment on that. The other thing is, I would like to hear from people here how they have changed their position on who they think the top two teams are. And I know this is silly, but if you can just sound out, who do you think, after what you've seen, the top two contenders are? So these two issues,
So
the US
Bassam,
and then top two contenders, and then we have to close before people have to leave us.
Bassam, I can answer your question on why American football is called football. It's because it evolved from what was then called rugby football. And that's why an American football and a rugby ball are roughly the same shape. The second reason, soccer is an English word meaning from England
I was
that
hoping you
got
wouldn't bring that up. Can you not bring them?
and it was from the newspapers abbreviating the sport AA or ASSOC dot football, which got corrupted into soccer. That is why those things are named the way they are. Sorry. Sorry to
No,
burst your
that's
bubble.
great.
Yeah, but go
I
ahead,
love
Matt.
these
Finish
tidbits.
I mean, yeah. Can you respond? Because this is the last round.
Yep. And top two contending teams, France and depending on the result today, I might lean Morocco.
Alex,
Over.
First of all, I'm upset that Matt didn't say anything about the U.S. men's national team. I think he should. I'm very optimistic, as I said, and we need to continue playing well the for the future of the sport. I think we can. I was not very optimistic coming in, but yeah, I'm hopeful about the USMNT. And in terms of my predictions, I'm not going to change anything. I'm happy with my prediction, but I will
can you
say,
repeat it, because I don't think everyone committed it to memory.
sure. So I had Spain beating who? I forgot now. Sorry. So 3 and 4 were Portugal and England, and Spain beating France probably. But I will say I'm scared of England. I'm actually terrified that England might actually win something, which ironically I'm not too upset about, considering the weird reaction to Thomas Tuchel being coach from a lot of English media. But they were really, really good against Croatia, and I'm worried that they might actually do better than I have them.
Abdullah?
Yeah, if I can give my just very brief contrarian, unhinged opinion about the situation with Portugal. I mean, I think if there is a team that is built to get the last bit of ability out of Cristiano, it is the one that has the best midfield in the world, presumably, right? That these are the three best midfielders that could make use of the last bit of talent that he has to give to the game. I think also he can really be a decoy out there, right? That defenders are still, drawn to him, and he could create so much space and opportunity for others. And the last question is who would you take him out and replace him with? Because Gonzalo Ramos and Joao Felix are both, completely ineffective in everything that we've seen, not just at the national level, but at the club level, right? That Gonzalo Ramos is like the fifth choice attacker on PSG. So I also don't know the idea of taking him out for someone else. Liao should come in maybe, but on the wing, not playing centrally. So I still think that there's something to the idea that Cristiano should be on that Portugal team. As far as changing picks, I think I'm sticking with my Spain over France. I do think the Netherlands, despite the draw, showed a lot of promise, and I'd like to see them in a semifinal as well.
It's funny. Not nobody, but England and Germany, which haven't been in the top three. Sometimes England does show up. Yeah, I mean they're also promising, but I'll go to Arjun.
On the United States, I think they're going to have a good run. I still worry that it's not going to kind of change youth soccer in America. My nephew's really good. He's 13. He plays MLS Next. And there's just such a focus on raw athleticism as opposed to technique. And so even if the US advances, I hope they realize that some of that training really matters. I think the three Lions are going to take it. I think England's going to win. I think what Thomas Tuchel told them at halftime is all we need to know. They were tied with Croatia. He took them in the locker room and said, look, go out there and play. If you lose playing aggressively, lose playing an offensive game. And what were the subs he made in the 80th minute? He brought on Saka, he brought on Rodgers, and he brought on Rashford. He's playing to win. I think England edges out Argentina in the semis. France makes it to the finals and edges out Spain, and then the three Lions bring it home.
Nice, nicely put. You put it like the SPN hosts and guests. طيب Khalid.
Yeah, that was nicely done, Arjun. It would be interesting to see
Actually,
to
can you
watch it.
repeat that because it was more exciting than the way we are presenting all of this content? I repeated that with different results. لا, Khalid, go ahead.
Okay, took the air right out of mine then. I think I'm gonna change mine to France, Spain. I'm gonna stick with Argentina as third. I see you, Bassam. And Morocco as fourth. I think the team this time has a lot of potential, a lot of belief. The talent is out there for everyone to see, and I have very high hopes. With regards to the US MNT, fantastic energy, fantastic chemistry. Even if the techniques, I'm not, 9 or 10 out of 10. I think just the chemistry, the hard work, the energy. I'm looking forward to it.
Who didn't go?
You,
Okay.
Bassam.
So I'm going to so far stick with France because it's the most promising team, and they have like two teams in one, unlike PSG who has three teams in one. And I know that a lot of people are not excited for whatever reasons about some of these other teams that we mentioned, but I will actually. I mean, I do think Argentina will go farther than people think, and I do think Spain will. So I'm ignoring here England, Germany, Holland. Sorry, Holland, and all these other teams. So I will stay with France and Spain. Um, all right. So parting words, and then we have to get ready for the game.
Don't watch the Fox broadcast. Watch Telemundo instead. Lexi Lawless eats his own toenails.
What about understanding what's those of us who don't speak Spanish?
I don't speak a
That's
lick of it
okay.
either.
You just need the energy.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, all right, Alex. Any last words? Can I say? Can I disclose your location, or I shouldn't?
You can certainly disclose my location, but that
Okay,
might lead to an
Alex
entire
hails
discussion.
now. He's talking to us from Oman, not Amman. Oman. By the way, the Jordanian team is amazing. Have you seen its like this qualifying matches? It was really remarkable. Anyway,
Did,
I'll say
did you
something about
just
this
say
as we
that so
close.
that you could get a plug for the Jordanians? No, they are very good. I was impressed. Uh, since you brought up Oman, though, I will say Abdullah's book is excellent, but he does not dwell on the Sultan of Oman enough. I think
Dwell?
Oman is
He
mentioned.
does not dwell.
You
He didn't
should.
dwell
It's
on many
worth it.
countries.
Okay. So my parting words are these. I'm really, really happy that the BN Sport coverage, which I'm watching here locally in the Gulf, is giving a lot of screen time to the parents of Diogo Jota, who should be on this Portugal team. But I'm really worried that he might get as many goals as Cristiano Ronaldo throughout this tournament. We'll see.
Guys, jump in. Don't be too polite.
It's the greatest event in the world. Enjoy it.
Yeah, and speaking of Oman, the new coach is actually Tariq Sekhtiwi, which is a great Moroccan coach, as good, if not better, than the current coach for the Moroccan team. So
He's
here is
already having an impact. He's already having an
great.
impact.
That's I'm very happy to hear that. And my last word would be goal.
Nixon 5. Sorry, that's the wrong podcast. Uh, no, I mean, just I think ending it on having, a very short thing to say about the teams from our region, the region we all care about. Obviously, it's a record number of, Middle East, North African states
8.
there. I think all of us expect Morocco to go the furthest, on balance of everything. A little disappointed, I think, with Algeria and Tunisia's first. I'm worried Tunisia's having a kind of Egypt 2018 moment. Um, but we'll see. I think Egypt impressed, and we'll see where Iran goes. We'll see if Turkey can bounce back. I think, like you said, Jordan and Iraq have been so inspirational and fascinating to watch. So there's a lot to look out for, in these next two rounds of games.
I know I'm gonna sound like a little kid, but I cannot wait until Lamine Yamal is
Is there another Lamine?
No,
is completely fit and ready to play. I just hope he gets serviced properly, and that's all that's all I'm gonna say. Um,
Sam, I'm sorry. I think he was at the same buffet with McTominay and McGinn and Roberts.
and next time, thank you all for being here, for doing this. We couldn't prepare as much as we would have liked to do this, but this is very interesting and exciting, and we will do another one later. But the next one will definitely include the speculation or answers or observations on the question of why is it that a lot of the B teams, some of them, let's say in the Middle East, like they say the Arab world, the 8 teams, 9 with Iran and others, but some of us know these teams quite a bit. Why is it that they do almost everything okay, but maybe not for the entire 90 minutes, but they do almost everything okay, but not the finishing? I mean, this has been the issue. I know when Khaled and I watch these games, there's like an amazing number of chances that are missed right at the end. Like everything happens correctly, and then the finishing is not there. Would love to discuss it. Would love to see like how much this has to do with capacity, with training, with whatever it is that with resources, whatever it is that we'd like to discuss. In addition to wherever the next stage is, my thanks to everybody here who came and participated, and I hope that next time we have some sort of rotation. Others within the Real Football Group will be joining us, and yeah, hope that you all enjoy the next week. It's literally during this time of genocide, wars, and horrible cruelty and inequality almost everywhere. This is a wonderful thing to watch, and friends of mine that I've connected with in places like Gaza, for instance, who have access or who are able to find access. This has been like a sole, shining light in the past months. It's been a great thing, and even though some of us feel guilty enjoying this, especially given where at times where we're at and what is happening to some of the players and teams, I think we should enjoy it. طيب. Salam. Thank you, everybody. Take care. See you soon.
Thanks, guys.
thank you. Take care.